Thank you so much for this interesting topic on fast-tracking decarbonization. And before we start onto that, first of all, apologies for coming in your way for your wonderful lunch, but you're definitely going to enjoy the next 30 minutes of the discussion because we have been from last 1.5 days looking into different policies, different aspects that people are talking about. But here is the panel which talks about both the sides of the business, which is the supply and the demand fulfillment. And that's why it's one of the most important sessions. And I'm ensuring you that this is going one of the most exciting discussions that we're going to have because walk the talk is what this panelist team is actually doing on the ground. From supply side, we have BrightNight bringing almost 100 megawatts of power generation round the clock. We just heard about reliability. We have team members from Grasim, Surya, and from JK Cement, Anil, who are going to talk about how they are actually fast-tracking decarbonization. So, Kapil Bansal this side from EY, where we've been working with a lot of these clients in terms of fast-tracking the whole low-carbon net zero journey. And while we're doing this thing, we definitely look the vision that our Honorable Prime Minister has laid down across the Panch Amrit. So let's divide the Panch Amrit into two parts. The supply side of it, which is, he mentioned 500 gigawatts of non-renewables, non-fossil fuel based, and 45% coming through renewable energy. That's the supply side. We'll hear a lot from BrightNight India, where Sajay is going to talk a lot about his plans. On the demand side, we have been talking about 1 billion tons of carbon reductions and 45% carbon intensity reductions, leading to almost net zero by 2070 as India's target. So that was the vision laid down, but let's hear how it is actually happening on ground with our panelists. So first question with Sajay, let's understand the supply side. You have ambitious plans of investing $1 billion. So what are your thoughts on the Indian market as you have entered and looking forward for growing that?
Thanks, Kapil. I think the biggest plus India market plus the successful industries that we have in India is the size and scale, right? So if you look at China, which is doing something like 100 gigawatts every year, that's the kind of scale and size they have. We also have that more or less, I'm not saying exactly 100 gigawatts, but scale and size is available in India. If you look from APAC or this side of the region, what we are missing is, or what we have to look at is the speed. The speed at which China is growing 100 gigawatts a year, that's something which we can definitely do in India because we have very good wind resource sites, we have very good solar sites available, low DevEx. Apart from China, I think this is the other country which has the low cost development cost for renewable projects. And there is a huge demand. And I think the speed is something which has to be looked at. I think government has been very, very focused on this. I remember, you can see my gray hair, like I've spent about 20 years in this industry. 15 years ago, if you used to go and tell about some policy change or support from the government, they used to say, yeah, you're taking tax breaks, you don't need this kind of policy support, etc. But now the entire thing has changed. From a single technology, wind or solar, the government is wanting to do round-the-clock, hybrid, firm, dispatchable, power which can be supplied in the peak time when the off-takers need it. So there is huge support from the government. I think now the policy certainty is what, Kapil, I would say, which will enable the speed for the industry. And supply side, I would say, like if you look at this CNI market, we believe it's a 100 gigawatt kind of an opportunity in next 2, 3, 4 years. And I don't think there is any shortage of supply because, as I said, wind itself is huge, multi 200, 300 gigawatts can be done. Of course, it's only 140 gigawatt the target. So supply side, I think our industries, the generators, developers are able to give short term, like in 9 to 12 months, the kind of timeline the off-takers need. And scale, speed is what we will look from the policy certainty point of view.
Thanks, Sajay. So just to put the perspective in numbers, India, if you're looking at 500 gigawatts, we have achieved 125 gigawatts, right? And everybody has said it's not a huge task, but definitely we need to have that scale and the agility But to achieve that agility and scale, you need to have the demand. So let's ask from ABG Group, Grasim, which is one of the major chemical, textiles, paper and pulp industries. So Surya, what's your view on how you can have that reliability as what been mentioned as one of the key factors, and we have the supply side coming from renewable to meet your continuous round-the-clock requirement in a reliable, agile, and as well as with the government support and policies to expedite the whole process of adoption. So any thoughts from your side, from your own experiences?
Yeah, it's very interesting and very tricky question. Because these are two silos currently that are operating. One is on the generation side, one is on the demand side. In between is the policy. Interlinking the policies between the demand and supply is what is very crucial. I can give you my own example. Like as a CSO, I face a lot of this with my senior management about decision making. The reason is you are having various policies in place, but there are a lot of changes that policies are happening on a very dynamic scale. Like we have PAT, right? We have RECs. Now they are talking about carbon market. We are not very sure how these are going to be, clubbed together, and is it going to be a single carbon market? How is this going to be? How this is going to function? The other side, global markets, where you have your regulations. The CBAM, which is already been notified. For 6 sectors, it is going to be implemented from this year onwards. They should start working on it. So there is a lot of, confusion. At the same time, a lot of, ambiguity. And also, people are like, what is the priority? That's the kind of scenario industry is going through. Having said that, the major change that happened in the industry is, this is a reality. You can't no longer think that this is going to happen down the line some 10 years, like you were mentioning that when you used to go and educate about the policies, now no need for you to educate about the policies. People are understanding that this is going to happen, right? So then what industry is trying to do is, industry is trying to look into the levers that are available. And then they are actually segregating the levers which are doable, like low-hanging fruits, easy to do it. So for example, Grasim has its own net zero targets, right? And our group has our own net zero targets. In order to achieve these net zero targets, we started looking internally, what are our energy requirements? What is the dependency on these energy requirements? So then we started looking various levers like NTPC is used 5%. We also started looking at biofuel into the existing boiler infrastructure. That's one lever. Digitization is another lever. Using artificial intelligence, and you're using all these latest, AI and other digital twins, etc. You're looking for smart manufacturing, whereby your efficiencies are improving and your energy consumptions are going down. So I can give you a ballpark figures, like at least any of these things will be giving you a reduction of 10% directly. If you actually really do an in-depth study, probably you will be achieving much more than that, right? So these are the levers industry started working already. Incremental improvement and benefits are happening. At a Grasim level, I'm very happy to say that from 2% of RE, we increased to 8%. That's a fantastic achievement that we made. This is again happened with the given infrastructure. But what I'm also very thrilled to say is the central grid is one thing which I'm personally, like I work with some of them. One of my friend is here who is also in the audience, who has actually helped me in working on it, understand about it. This is a very stable grid. So this is again good news for us, and how the policies will allow the flexibility between the state grids to central grid, and allow us to have more RE power with maximizing PLF across, so that you can, get a good amount of RE power at a longer duration, because industry requires not only few hours of power, it is around the clock you need the power. Sometimes you need this power on an emergency basis, because some of your processes require emergency power, which you cannot afford to have your blackouts and all those kind of things. So these are some of the dynamics and these are some of the changes that are happening.
Thanks, Surya. So Surya just opened an eye for us that, the energy transition is happening. It's a reality as we speak. So you can see from 2% to 8%, and it goes well with what NTPC just mentioned, that their plans and their current status on all the objectives and functions that they have been building towards energy transition is happening. So we heard from the industry, Surya really mentioned Grasim as a well-known name over here with everyone, is taking it as a reality. And there are certain element of confusion, which is where, Indian carbon markets have been getting built. We will hear consultation paper out. There's a carbon border adjustment mechanism which is coming. So there is an carrot where you can get carbon credits in the Indian markets. There is a stick which comes from the carbon tax if you are exporting to the international market. So that balance has to be taken into consideration. So the realities are there, but what is important point that Surya mentioned is how do industries like hard to abate are looking towards balancing this confusion of where to play in terms of the business has to grow. India is in consumption market, right? And how do they achieve this thing? So let's understand from another sector, cement, where almost 0.56 tons of carbon is emitted in the process of generating cement and concrete for every ton of cement that is created. And I think JK Cement is doing a fabulous job in creating a market for themselves in this whole net zero journey. So over to you, Anil, with some of the levers that you're adopting in the cement sector, which is difficult sector to manage with the inherent properties of carbon emissions.
Thank you. Thank you. So cement sector is considered the hard to abate sector because of its peculiar use of energy and process emissions. We use the energy in the form of electrical energy, in the form of thermal energy, and also the raw material, which is limestone. And limestone itself generates the CO2 during the calcination. So our every steps of the process generates CO2. That's why we are the hard to abate sector, because there is no solution for the process emissions to control to abate except the carbon capture and utilization technologies. That is one. So if we divide the entire cement process, we can divide into three major parts. One is the supply chain, where we need the raw materials, the low carbon raw materials. We need the fuel, the low carbon fuel. We need the power, the low carbon power. These are the inputs. And the fleets, that is the commercial business, because approximately 25% of the emissions comes from the fleet, the transportation, inward and outward within the plant. So that area comes under the commercial aspect. And then the supply chain, and within the process, we consume power, fuel, and the limestone. So this is the critical area where we have the control. How can we control, can reduce the R emissions? And then the buyer sides. The buyers should be ready to accept the low carbon materials, because that will be slightly more costlier than as of now, we are costing them. And as the cement is the essential part of India's growth story, the government cannot put more prices or carbon prices, the taxes on the cement. Otherwise, the economic growth can be derailed. So if we see within what we are doing within the Indian cement sector, we divided our entire decarbonization journey into three parts. One is by 2030. What are the possible levers as on date within the Indian context? And what could be beyond 2030 to 2050? And the major lever is our world commitment, the India's commitment worldwide. 2070 is the net zero carbon to achieve by every sector. Also the voluntary commitment made by the cement sector, individual company, science-based target initiatives. We also made the commitment as a global member of the GCCA to achieve the net zero cement and concrete by 2050. These are the drivers. So what the sector is doing as of now, we consume power. So the energy efficiency measures. And Indian cement sector is the highly energy efficient across the world. So we implemented all the best technologies, consume less power. Second is what type of the power we consume. We consume fossil power. We have the captive power plant. So as of now, Indian cement sector on an average replace around 20% of the fossil power with the green power. We are investing in the waste heat recovery system because we have the waste heat in our system. So we are capturing waste heat to generate the power. Now we started replacing the fossil fuel with the clean fuel, which are the biomass available, nearby areas, industrial waste, and the RDF. Though there are so many problems while we use this in the system, in the cement process, but the sector already achieved, Indian average is 6 and 7%. Our JK cement is average is 19%, 14%, 1 and 2 and 3 units already crossed the 35%. So we developed the capabilities, how can we replace this? And up to what extent we can replace this? And then the third, so this is the selection of the fuel. Selection of the power is important because fuel and power, they are responsible for 30% of the carbon emissions. And there is a possibilities for 100% we can replace coal, we can replace 100% fossil power. So in power sector, we need the reliable 24/7, the green power available from the grid at a competitive price. So that is needed. If it is available, the sector is ready to replace entire the fossil power, and we are not interested to run the captive power plants. Second is the fuel. Yes, fuel can be replaced. As of now, 35% we targeted that we will replace by 2030 because these technologies are available. And beyond that, we require some emerging technologies, new research and development, so that the process, the hindrance can be avoided when we use it. And then the new, the fuel which we are looking for is the hydrogen. And we are working how the hydrogen can be used, can replace partially, what extent, and could be 100%, because hydrogen cannot give the complete energy required for cement process. So how can we use it? So as on date, this is the use of hydrogen technology at very low TRL level. And we expect that in next 4 to 5 years by 2030, this technology could be available commercially and technically available before the cement sector to replace. And then next, we can 100% replace the fuel by electrification of the kiln. So the cement sector is a global member of the global, the research associated with the global research sector, research network. We are inviting the startups across the world, and we are working how the electrification of the cement kiln can be done. And once it is done, then we will entirely replace the fuel with the electricity, and electricity should be available 24/7 green electricity. Then we can say, yes, sector is capable to replace the 40% of 30 or 35% of the emission by 2050. But as of now, whatever available technologies, we can replace 20% from FY 2020 to by 2030. Not beyond is not possible. Then these emerging technologies are required. Lastly, the process, which is very crucial and critical, the emission coming from the limestone, no solution except the capture. As of now, this is under developing stage, various, and we expect that the 1% of the CO2 across the world can be captured by 2030. And by 2030, the commercial and technically this technology will be available before the sector to put on the commercial, on the scalable. And then what is the important thing to putting, because all these technology are the capex intensive technologies. As of now, what is the carbon tax or the penalty is $2 and $2.5 per ton of CO2 in India, and which is very, very less than what is required to invest. The 50 to 60 USD is required to capture to abate the 1 ton of CO2, and carbon pricing is only 2.5. So the positive carbon market can incentivize to adopt these technologies, emerging technologies. So this is the growth, this is the path for 2050, 2070, cement sector looking for the emerging technologies, electrification, hydrogen, CCUS, to be available to implement commercially and technical viability. And as a sector, we can cut up to 20 to 25% by 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. It was amazing to understand how in a cement sector is actually taking 3 different pathways to decarbonize and achieve net zero. It's very interesting to see, Sajay, is, you have 2 industrialists who's looking from a net zero, like Grasim mentioned, 2040 at the net zero. JK Cement, I think you also have a target by 2050 to achieve a net zero. And both of them have 2 set of requirement of energy. One is the power, because you heard Grasim saying they have grown from 2% to 8%, but can still achieve 100%. Similarly, JK Cement also mentioned that their 30% of emissions can be reduced if it can be electrification plus renewable, as well as the change of fuel from fossil to, other source of energy. Green hydrogen is one of the examples. So what is your stand now, saying that it's a journey and all investors look for an annuity income coming from a long-term journey, and this is now happening? Two industrialists talking about their journey of two important factors, electricity and heat or fuel for their processes. What's your thoughts on green energy put together, and where are the challenges that you're seeing, if any, from a supply to fulfill these two gentlemen's requirement?
Yeah, Kapil, I'm aware of that we are between you and the lunch, but we will still take the risk of angry questions rather than keeping you awake after the lunch. So with that, I think it's a no-brainer that if you look at from the technology perspective, if round the clock and with complete green power solution is now possible. The only missing link is the storage component, which is today is costly because as the modules, it is completely controlled by China. So if you see last 1 year, there's about 30% increase in the prices, which is battery prices. But the good thing is that there is a different technology which is coming up, which is pumped hydro storage. And that probably would be a much longer and a reliable solution because the life is 40 years compared to batteries like they claim that every 10 years only you need to replace, but nobody has that learning curve yet. So pump storage with both wind and solar can actually resolve the issues of any off-taker. I think the government is also pushing that. There was a recent announcement on pumped hydro storage policy as well. So that is something which is just available. I would like to take this opportunity, all senior, well-known, learned people. We have an ecosystem, as you said, sir, that we have an ecosystem where we cannot probably change the policy or terms and conditions which are, I hope no discom guys are dictated by discoms. So we need to live, at least for 3, 4 or 5 years, we need to live together because as you rightly said, the policy is not in our control, it is a third party thing. So this is where I think a developer and generator, if they come together and look at what are the risks in a PPA, right? Because we just need to take a leaf from the SECI, like what government did, a tremendous thing that they brought in an entity which is bankable, and they are giving a lot of bankability to the PPA, which has given two things. One, the scale and size of the projects have gone up, which has brought the economies of scale and reduced your project cost itself. Two, the more important thing is your financing cost, because these are all like long-term projects, right? The cost of finance has also gone down when your projects are more, PPAs are more bankable. When we come to, and it is right in the front of our face that the tariff is lower than the average power purchase cost of any discom. If you look at wind or solar, today's grid parity achieved is lower than the APPC. But here, if you come to a C&I or a bilateral PPAs, the issues are that you would like to put this risk, which is policy, the resource, right, onto the developer. Now, developer has no other way other than providing a recourse to his balance sheet. If you look at the SECI deals, it's non-recourse. And that's why you're getting a very good aggressive numbers on the tariff. And we just to take a leaf from that. I understand that, you have a business case certainty to be brought in. But probably, if you look at, if I were you, probably I would look at the two important factors to go buy a renewable energy is future-proofing your electricity cost. And second, of course, decarbonization. Unfortunately, the way all of us are working is, we are looking neither at these two, but we are looking at cost saving, what I can achieve by doing a third-party power. The weightage for the decision making that we are seeing from and I'm not saying you're wrong, because the risks are so high because the policy and uncertainties on these surcharges, and there are so many angles to it. If it was plain vanilla ARR calculation based certainty on the surcharges, probably we could have taken a call, but there are political angle to it, and you have no clue where it will go to, right? So there I think both parties need to see how this can be mitigated, because if you're as a person who's putting equity in the project and trying to de-risk the entire generation, additional surcharge, the group capital structure, everything, if you try to de-risk, the developer has no other choice than to cost it. And that's why you see the SECI tariffs are much lower than the C&I tariff. Simple. So this is where I think if both parties come together, and that's where I said that the decision should be taken of future-proofing the cost of electricity. I think all of us know that the coal or any power coming from DISCOM is not going to go down. You just take the last 50 years trend. It is definitely going to go up. So this, and that upside lies with you. That's how the PPA is. Even my SECI PPA is like that. I don't have any upside if they save more, right? So if those kind of upsides you keep in mind while deciding that you should go into buying a green energy, I think that will help you much better PPA pricing strategy from the developer. It's a simple reason. If I get a 25 years PPA, like I get SECI, we can pass you almost 5 to 6 paisa per unit because my cost of debt comes down, my bankability of PPA improves, right? Or my life of plant is 25 years. So all those things can be taken advantage, which today developer is forced to take the risk because most of them are funded by private equity funds, right? And they don't understand the real infrastructure story. They will just cost the risk and put it in the PPA. So this is what I would request that, as partners, I'm not saying that you can completely take the risk, but we can keep some long stop where certain portion of exposure we take to show the skin in the game so that the serious players like us are in picture.
I think, Surya, I want to answer that immediately. Please go ahead, because there is a supply side and demand side fighting for each other. Both sees the money on the table. It's them to kind of come as a partners to solve the solution, which is the risk that you want to avoid to get all the rewards at both the sides.
Yeah, I don't want to, answer immediately to that question, but I just wanted to tell the reality and the difficulty and the dilemma that the boards face. It's like the large part of our manufacturing is commodities, right? Because of the nature of the economy and the consumption patterns here. And the margins in the commodities are very, very thin. And they gradually, kind of tamper down over a period of time. And at the same time, you look at the cost of capital. So that means your EBITDA level should be at a very healthy level to be able to take such kind of risk, which is the catching factor today. You are correct at your point of view. Even the consumer or the supply side or the demand side also understand that. But the demand side people are all unable to make those decisions because of this dilemma. That's what I just wanted to bring it to the, close the conversation of what you are trying to put in.
Oh, excellent. So definitely there is an opportunity to reduce costs, as Sajay mentioned, from renewable perspective. You mentioned there are certain challenges, policies has to be expedited. But then definitely one has to see the overall supply chain or the value in the supply chain. And that's why I would like to go back to Anil and ask, in the JK Cement perspective, you are very close to consumer. You said cement is mandatory for India to grow as an infrastructure product. So are you seeing a green product, a premium for which you can get if you produce, say, 100% green cement, and the market is ready to pay a premium in India or internationally, if that's a possibility? And just throwing a hypothesis because, somewhere somebody has to see from the value chain, somebody is providing the input to you, you are providing an output to the end consumer, and the end consumer should be able to pay. We all talk about, but then as a customer, should they be able to, are you able to get that premium in the market?
Yeah. So the green cement, as of now, already the sector reduced around the 35 to 40% since 1990. So we say that our cement, that is the blended cement, is the green cement, where the clinker factor already we achieved 65%. And in our 2050 or net zero roadmap, we are looking for 60% clinker should be there to achieve the durability and strength of the cement. We can't go beyond that. So 40% the clinker can be replaced with the supplementary cementitious material, alternate raw materials, and sector already developed the alternative material like the LC3 cement. And how we can reduce for the clinker. We are very much associated with the research institute in India like NCCBM, IITs, and also abroad, a research institute. And the product has been developed. They are before the Indian regulator to approve the codes, and then we are ready to produce the blended cement to the consumer. Not the premium cost, lowest cost. Because the green is always cheaper, not the higher than the existing cost. So that is one part. But what we need the policy support from the government. Government should also promote the green product in the market. Government should buy the green product. Government in their product and in their project, they demand the OPC cement. And we want to supply the PPC cement, the blended cement, because that is the low carbon cement. So that is the one we need the policy support from them. Number two, how can we control the cost while putting these high capex intensive projects? The government is charging the cess on call, as on it 400 rupees per ton. Some penalties are there. These charges, collections can be used to develop the research ecosystem, innovation ecosystem, where the new innovative technologies can be a pilot, and that pilot, if successfully implemented, they would be the beneficial for the sector, for scalable and a seamless, transition financing. If extended to the sector, we can implement all these electrification, CCUS technologies without putting additional cost on the cement. And I don't know how the market will play if the cost increases, because the another country is ready to supply low cost of the cement.
Great. So thanks, gentlemen. It was kind of an amazing discussion that we had across the value chain, from the supply side of clean, green energy, I would say, both electricity and power, with suppliers ready to supply the green energy to the demand sectors, which are hard to abate. We have seen one from the textile cement, another from cement. Both have started their journey in very significant manner as we speak now, looking at the impact of carbon policies that are going to come in India, as well as which are already adopted in the different global contexts. And with that, I would especially thank Economic Times for having such a wonderful panel, as well as a topic on this, which is very important, because what we are seeing here is actually walk the talk of what is the policies that government is framing, but there's a lot more to be done, as we consistently see from each one, certain elements of mandatory policies from their own consumption, bringing the whole element of expediting the whole policies of what has been framed into action, and making sure that all this come cohesively towards ensuring that the infrastructure challenges are captured and executed on time. With that note, thanks everyone, and looking forward for your lunch going forward.